Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. It's Friday, June 28th, 2024. I am Jer Stays, and as he joins me on most Fridays, friend of the show, longtime Mr. Friday contributor, Devon O'Reilly. How are you, sir?
I guess I'm all those things, but yes, it's good to be here, Jer. Another fabulous Friday here in Daily Detroit land.
Oh, 100%. And we have so much, absolutely so much we could talk about.
We do. It's always hard figuring out what topics we want to cover. We could probably talk about just about anything, so it's a little difficult, but I think we've pared it down to a good show here.
Let's go ahead and talk about where we've been, kind of like the traditional start of the show.
Sure. Works for me. Where have you been, Jer?
Okay, so I checked out a really interesting and fun event over at this place. Have you ever heard of Go Comedy in Ferndale?
No. Oh gosh. This is the third time in a row I'm going to do this. Third episode in a row. I'm not like a stand-up comedy person.
Right. Well, I figured that maybe you had heard of it, but anyway, this is like a 90-seat improv theater just east of Woodward on 9 Mile. I went to a great repetitive series that repeats every month on the third Thursdays called Let's Just Say, and it was Pride themed. It was a lot of fun. This place does improv. There's like different stand-up shows. There's classes out of this place. It's been around in the Ferndale community for quite a while, but I wanted to give it a little bit of shine because I found myself there and I was like, this is a good time. I think it's really important to support independent arts in Metro Detroit. Sure, we talk about the big organizations or whatever, but the small stuff adds so much like color and character and all that other stuff. You know, I really appreciate it.
So how was the comedy show?
I mean, it was both funny and touching because this one was about Pride. So it was about their stories of Pride, whether it was, realizing that they were a member of the LGBT plus community, whether it was specific like anecdotes. It was just really great to see all these people. And you know what was cool about it too? These were not professionals. These were personal stories. And some of the things, at Go Comedy, you can go through the list on their website on gocomedy.net, and you can kind of see what the shows are, because it's really like a variety of stuff. And it's a quirky place. Like it's got a bar, a little like waiting area, and it's table service. So it's not like some places where it just rows of chairs. There's like little like tables that you can sit at.
Okay. And so are the comics, are these like professional comics? Are these a mix of like just amateurs, people kind of going for an open mic, or what's the kind of vibe of the comics themselves?
So I think it depends on the show.
Okay.
So I think it comes down to what is that specific event, and is it about improv or sketch comedy, or is it about stand-up, or is it somebody coming through town? Like that kind of thing. It's a little bit on the smaller scale. Like there's also Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle in Royal Oak. That's a much bigger venue.
Yeah, that's a pretty.
It's a big venue.
Well known, yeah.
Yeah.
And then one mic in downtown Detroit.
Oh, that's right, one mic. And then the Detroit House of Comedy. We actually had the producers of the Detroit House of Comedy on the show during the pandemic, and we talked to Paul Elliott, who recorded his special at the Detroit House of Comedy.
Okay, so we've got maybe more. Once we start thinking about it, we've got a few different comedy clubs. I don't know how many I'll be able to check out, but that's not quite my thing, but I appreciate it, so I'm glad it's there. It sounds really cool.
Do you laugh or only on the inside?
Mostly on the inside. My humor is very dry in most cases.
Were you like a Monty Python person, or are you?
Oh yeah. Oh, I was.
Okay.
I was watching Monty Python when I was like a kid. My parents introduced me to it, like that. Kids in the Hall.
Yeah. I love Kids in the Hall.
See, exactly.
I love dry comedy though.
There you go.
You see, kind of universal, right? So where have you been?
So I've been somewhere. I'm not breaking any news here. This isn't like a just open place. This is a long-standing place, the Detroit Zoo. I don't know how many people listening have been there recently. They've done so many cool things recently, including painting the water tower. But that was just only a small piece of what they did. I found myself going to the zoo more frequently now as a father because it's a great place to take kids. Pretty much at all walks of life, I would say. But, to level set, it is interesting taking a 2-year-old there because they're young enough or they're old enough to appreciate that there are animals there, and they can say the names of the animals, but they're not too concerned about which animals they see. I think when they get older, you're like, oh, I got to go and I got to see the giraffes, and it's got to, interact with me, or I got to go see the tigers. My daughter is kind of just like, okay, animals are animals. That's cool. There's a monkey. There's a zebra. There's a camel, like whatever it is. She was happy to see a squirrel. So it's just animals are all around, and so she was really happy. She actually found herself more happy interacting with like the bronze statues of the different animals that they have throughout the zoo. You know, there's like monkey, there's an elephant, there's a rhino. You can kind of sit on them, kind of like climb over them. That was really appealing to her because she could interact with them and say, hi, monkey, hi, rhino, hi, elephant. And we could take a picture of her on them. And that, for whatever reason, was even more exciting than just seeing the animals themselves from afar.
Maybe it's because she got to like climb around and hang out with them. Like,
yeah, exactly. Because to her, it's all the same. This monkey may not be talking back to me, but I can like, pet the monkey and talk to it and say things to it. So worked out well for her. She got to run around. Parent tip, not that we need it, but like, you want to burn energy, you go to the zoo because the kid was running all over the place. They have playscapes there too, like a relatively new playscape. So we actually burned some energy with her just going on the different slides and climbing things and stuff. So it was completely, it's so fun. Even in the morning, they have all the restaurant and beverage concepts. You're never walking more than 150 feet without being able to get some Dippin' Dots or some hot dogs, some pizza from Buddy's, or they have now the higher end restaurant there. There's beer there, and they start serving that beer at probably 10:30. I saw some people walking around with beer at like 10:15 even. So another parent tip. Nothing wrong as a parent with having a beer at 10:15 at the zoo.
Peacock and a Pilsner?
I think I did that actually because there was a peacock wandering around, and I may have had a Pilsner myself.
Yeah, because there was a story that was around the news about how one of the peacocks got out and like was running around Oak Park.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, those peacocks, they're crafty. He was wandering around the zoo. My daughter was delighted to see it. So
let's get into a fun thing. The New York Times mentioned that Amar Pizza in Hamtramck and Troy got a nod as one of the best pizza places in the U.S. I got to tell you, I haven't been. Now, listeners on our Patreon Discord told me I need to look out for the Ghost Pepper Pizza, which is not my
sounds hot.
pace.
I don't know if I can handle that.
Another one they offer is a dried fish, which has shrimp, which is not going to be my jam. Mm-hmm. The idea here is that these are like, they do regular pizza and they also do like Bangladeshi pizza.
Okay.
Like Bangladeshi themes and flavors.
All right. So this is a little bit outside of the box pizza, no pun intended.
See, dry humor. There it is. They do a tandoori, which I think is what I'm going to check out. Because I got to try it this weekend. I feel bad that I live within like 2 miles of this place and I've never been.
I haven't heard of it.
Sometimes it takes someone outside getting a look at what we're doing. So I'm glad to check it out. I'm looking forward to it. If you've got recommendations, dailydetroit@gmail.com on something I should get, but like get it to me in like a short time from the show. But because I feel like I got to get it this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you should check it out. I feel like you're close enough. You can go grab some, and nothing wrong with reheated pizza. So maybe I'll come grab a slice if it's really that good.
Toaster oven is the key for that.
Oh,
toaster oven or the oven. Never microwave.
Okay, good to know.
Do you mic your pizza?
Well, I don't have a toaster oven.
You could oven it. So
okay,
just do like the
that.
flat.
You gotta wait a little longer.
Wait a little longer, but it's gonna be so much better. So much better.
That's why I have you here, Jerry.
I'm here for the people. $1 million from the Michigan Department of Environmental, Great Lakes, and Energy, or EGLE, was awarded to the historic Fisher Body Auto Plant project. That is underway. You can see the lights off the freeway. I wanted to mention it because when I drive around and see the lights of this place, the Fisher Body was something I thought was going to be torn down. You saw parts of it just collapse at times out the back. That's right there at like 75 and 94.
I was going to say we should orient people in terms of, because you're right, you see it off the freeway, you might not know what it is if you're just, driving over it or driving past it.
Yeah, you'll see it the most if you're going 75 north and then going to 94 west, or 94 west to 75 north, and you kind of keep an eye out when you're on like the bridge over is when you're going to see it the most. But it's great to see. I wanted to mention because it is a $153 million development, 433 residential units and commercial, and there'll be commercial space. This is going to be ready in the summer of 2026. There's so much happening in this kind of like Milwaukee Junction, Paquette area, because like on the same street, you've got the new Detroit Public Television headquarters, or Detroit PBS. You've got residential in an old, like, just so much.
Yeah. The 400 plus residential units is huge. That's fantastic news. And we don't have the specs yet, but I have to imagine they'll be relatively affordable or have specifically designated affordable units.
Another quick bit in the city, the first 3 solar neighborhoods will be Gratiot Findlay, Van Dyke and Lynch, and State Fair. After 7 months of community engagement, the city chose these sites. $14 million project partnered with DTE Electric and Lightstar Renewables. They're going to convert 200 acres of vacant land into these solar arrays, which will generate enough power to offset the electricity used by all 127 city municipal buildings. They're, of course, aiming for climate change benefits and all that. But homeowners living next to new solar fields will receive improvements, home improvements ranging from 15 grand to 25 grand. More neighborhoods could come in 2025. All of this is part of the city's goal around climate change. And it's interesting, no zoning changes were required because it's a municipal project. And after about 35 years, when the useful life of the solar panels is over, it will be returned to the city as greenfield. I think this is interesting to talk about because it's an acknowledgement that we need to use land in different ways and that we need to think about focusing where we do development and where we don't do development, still putting that land to use.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the climate change angle of this, and that's certainly worthy. But I mean, I think there's other kind of threads to pull on why this is beneficial. One is reuse, adaptive reuse, taking these spaces that otherwise are not really getting any use in creating these solar fields. We can do that with areas of Detroit because we do have still lots of tracts of land that this can be done in. It's improving residential services in multiple ways. I would assume, and I don't want to overstep here because I don't know enough about how the energy works, I would assume that this is going to be obviously a cleaner energy source. I assume more efficient energy source for the residents that are nearby. And we didn't really talk about the cost savings. I have to imagine that some of that is passed on to the residents.
And one of the reports I read, one of the council members, Coleman Young Jr., was talking about how it's necessary to do all these things because you can lower the cost for the city. And if you lower the cost for the city, then you can take that money and put it in other places where you've got city buildings not having to give money to DTE, basically.
Yeah, and I think that, again, that's important. So if we're talking about neighborhood to neighborhood, why would a neighborhood do this? You could tell them and say, hey, we're doing this to combat climate change. Then you might have residents saying, okay, great, fantastic. Some residents might just don't care. But when you're talking about we're going to do this and it is going to save you money, let's talk dollars, save you money on energy costs, I don't know many people who would say no to this.
Well, in a lot of these older homes, as someone who lives in one, you could really use new windows, new insulation. You actually lower people's monthly bills with that. The next round is interesting because if that happens, there'll be some homes that are actually like purchased. And kind of reconfiguring where some of these neighborhoods are because like a hard conversation about this with the city is that you got to focus where you're at. There's just too many square miles for the people that we have.
Yeah, to achieve the quality of service that the city wants to be able to bring to its residents, it's just so difficult to spread that out over kind of the current tracts of land that we have, and you have to consolidate a little bit. That's a hard conversation, but you kind of have to.
Well, and if there's a way to do it where it's not just taking, but you're giving something,
right?
I think it's a good way to go. I want to mention really quick that the Michigan State budget passed this week. I'm not going to get into all the details, okay? But I want to mention about some local earmarks, some local projects, and what kind of money they're going to be getting out of this. Now, it's a very small sliver of the larger budget, but I know that people locally want to know about this stuff. So there will be $7 million for that Detroit Zoo.
Nice.
That you went to.
They deserve every bit of it.
Now, there's also stuff around the state, but I focus on the Metro Detroit projects. $1.5 million for Jimmy John's Field in Utica. $2 million.
I don't know who's playing there. That's very broad.
Well, there is that league, the USPBL. It's like 3 or 4 teams.
What? What are they playing?
Baseball.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
I wasn't clear.
Yeah, there's like I don't remember. I went to a game once, like a few years ago.
Baseball and like a semi-professional level.
Yeah, and you can go out there, and there's always like games every night. Very family friendly. It's over by M59.
Oof, I don't know. Who knows what's happening over? Who knows what's happening over there? I don't know. Sounds awesome.
$2 million for Hamtramck's Negro League field at Keyworth.
That I have known and been to. So yes,
that is very cool rehab that they've been doing over there. $2 million for the downtown boxing gym in Detroit. This is on top of a couple million that Mackenzie Scott gave them earlier this year. We had DBG on the show to talk about that. So this is another $2 million. They're part of this big capital campaign because you hear downtown boxing gym, but really it's like a youth education program.
Yeah, I had a chance to tour it a couple times over the years, and they're just building that out. And the boxing gym is just kind of the carrot that gets people in there. And then from there, they have all this like STEM education stuff, classrooms, learning spaces, child care facility, like what it's really becoming a huge operation, and obviously that costs money, but all the work they're doing is just great.
Canton Township's Municipal Hall will get $1 million. Parks and Warren are getting $1 million, and $300,000 will go to public Wi-Fi in Detroit's Greektown.
I like that. I mean, more public Wi-Fi is always a good thing. Greektown, could definitely use some investment like that to make it easier for people to communicate. It's good stuff.
It's interesting to see that, that Greektown thing makes me think of, there's this continuing discussion with I-375. They just had a hearing about that this week. Definitely some divisions among residents around that one. And also the businesses in Greektown are a little worried about the construction on this one. So it's interesting. Hey, do you think this project's going to land?
The 375?
Yeah.
No,
you don't think it's going to happen?
Do you remember the conversation we had about the cap on I-75? And even I think when you brought this up to me, the 375 stuff, I was a little skeptical. I don't think it's going to land because it's just going to get caught up in divisiveness and the back and forth, and it's not going to have enough buy-in to actually push it across. I think we were almost to the point. We're going to be talking about, I think, the stalling soon, because there's just not agreement on what we want here. There's three schools of thought here. Do nothing. We don't need this. Okay. Spend the money elsewhere. Okay. Let's do something. Let's build it out, fill it in, do the whole boulevard thing. But then there's a lot of people who say like that's kind of useless just having a boulevard. Then there's people who are saying not only fill it in, but also do a ton of investment in black businesses and some form of kind of a people use the word reparations, but some form of like giving that back to members of the community, business owners. For business purposes, so they can kind of benefit off of it. And I just don't think there's enough support for any of those three options for any one of them to get through.
But the issue is that it's going to cost way more money to rebuild those bridges. Like, the thing is that section of freeway has to be rebuilt. It is crumbling. It is a mess. And so one way or another, and I saw the numbers on this when I reported it for Detroit PBS some years ago, it's going to cost more to rebuild it as a freeway, which has to happen. Something has to happen here.
It's bad, but you know what? I think whatever ends up happening, something will happen, Jared. Either maybe they'll just redo the freeway, rebuild the bridges. Maybe they will overfill it and do the boulevard. They'll just do it despite the backlash they're getting. At the end of the day, whatever this becomes, most people are going to be unhappy about it.
I've already been getting the comments, especially people who are inconvenienced about work. I mean, for me, and I'm sorry, listeners, but like I have found that we actually have enough roads where a little bit of a detour can be, it's not like, there was this thread that I saw that made me laugh where they moved here from another city and they're like, Detroit traffic is cute.
Yeah, right.
And it is. Like, if you've been to Atlanta or Chicago or other places, our traffic, especially down here, is not.
I mean, we have a ton of construction. Can you imagine how amazing our traffic would be if there weren't constantly orange barrels? Like, if just the roads just functioned like they normally would without the orange barrels, how easy traffic would be. The only thing that slows Detroit traffic down at all is these massive construction projects.
All right, before we go, I wanted to mention this. This has been in a lot of people's minds. Rite-Aid, they are reportedly moving out of Michigan, closing all their stores. Now, the company isn't confirming this. I guess they sideways confirmed it to a piece in MLive. I reached out to the company. They're not talking to almost anybody. This is not good PR at all. And so something I learned covering the Ascension thing recently is that there's like a number of companies who think that they can like say nothing and post through it. Guess what? We're going to talk about you anyway now.
We don't live in that world anymore.
No, like we're not like this idea that you're just not going to talk and we're not going to say anything. PR people over there, well, guess what? We're about to talk about you. And here is the thing. Rite-Aid coming out, that is a huge hole. Like, not just in this, like people will say the city of Detroit and low-income areas, but you know what? There's going to be a huge hole across the region.
There was an article recently, and I can't remember the publication, talking about what the closure of all these Rite-Aids is doing in terms of creating pharmacy deserts. In many parts of Michigan, particularly in rural Michigan, Jared. Like we're not the biggest impact. We'll talk about the city in a second, but the biggest impact is actually going to be some of these Rite-Aids and stuff in locations where once you lose that, you're talking miles and miles and miles and miles. In the city here, it's still going to create that. I mean, we were kind of chatting a little bit, and it's like in the last year, I've lost the CVS in West Dearborn. I've lost the Rite-Aid in West Dearborn. Now, boo-hoo me, I can get to one in a few miles, but when you live in a denser urban suburban area like that, like it is kind of crazy that in all of West Dearborn, there's probably 20,000 residents is an easy estimate. They have to drive quite a bit of ways to get to any kind of a pharmacy. That seems ridiculous.
I think a lot of this stuff is moving online, like with like Express Scripts and stuff like that. But that's just not. It's not a great way to go.
It's more than that, though. I would say, like, I go to Rite-Aid, the Rite-Aid by me. My wife and I probably go there. I'm not kidding, multiple times a week because there's always stuff you need, and it's 90% of them aren't for prescriptions. It's our local little like store. I need shampoo, body wash. I need I don't know. You need a quick drink, snacks. Like they have everything. They're like a little convenience store. Like we don't have bodegas. This is the bodega for us, basically. And so there's all these little things where you need to run up to Rite Aid and grab something. They have a little bit of everything. And losing that is gonna really suck.
Yeah, and so many jobs involved.
And that
so
too.
many jobs involved.
So I don't know, Jared. I can't help but think, and this is how I kind of my positive side. I'm always kind of consoling my wife about this Rite Aid thing. I'm like, I can't imagine. I mean, business is business, right? This is capitalism. When there is a vacuum for business, something usually goes in it. So I can't imagine that we won't see something start to take this place. Maybe not a 1-for-1 on these Rite Aids, but like there is room for either, I don't know who it is. Could be a new player, could be a Walgreens, but like someone needs to take this torch up because there is money to be made in having a convenience store pharmacy concept.
Oh, for sure. And then on the prescription side, and disclosure, they are a sometimes sponsor of this podcast, but like I'm part of a direct primary care group. And so is it some money? Yes, but like the service, and it's not that much money. The service is crazy. And then the prices on drugs are so much better because you can just like text your doctor. It gives more opportunity for these upstarts where it's like before, well, maybe I wouldn't pay this extra bit. But then when you average it out between like the savings on the drugs, the better service, everything else, like paying a few bucks a month, actually, if you actually care about your health, is totally worth it for some people. It's going to open up more opportunities for stuff like that as well.
And I hope that is the case. Like I said, I would hope that it's not just, Walgreens comes in and just takes up all the market. I would hope that there's a little room for some pivoting or some maybe locally owned. Maybe some local entrepreneurs want to open up a pharmacy / convenience store, whatever you want to call what Rite Aid and CVS were, a little bit of everything type of spot. I would be more than welcoming of that, and I think a lot of people in various neighborhoods that are losing their Rite Aids would be more than welcoming of that.
I agree completely. By the way, I forgot to mention this. Plum Health, shout out to Dr. Paul Thomas, opening up a new location in Royal Oak.
Good for Paul.
Like right in the middle of things, because he did the thing in like Van Buren and Owasso. It's like, if you listen to us in Owasso, you are awesome, but I know that you're not our like target demo. But Royal Oak's right in the middle of our people.
Right in our alley. Good for Dr. Paul and the crew over there at Plum. I think they'll do fantastic there.
Absolutely. All right, with that, I am Jer Stays.
I'm Devon O'Reilly.
Thank you so much for listening to your Daily Detroit. As always, remember to leave us 5 stars on your favorite podcast app. Take care of each other. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll talk next week.